Girls Trip to Ireland! This is a charmingly old-fashioned Irish travelogue from 1901 called Penelope's Irish Experiences by Kate Douglas Wiggin. It features three traveling American ladies named Penelope, Francesca, and Salamina. The book was written by Kate Douglas Wiggin, who was a prolific author at the time. Her most famous novel is probably Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm, which is a children's novel. I read it as a child, actually. It's pretty well known. And in fact, she devoted much of her life to children, to children's education. As a young woman, she started the first free kindergarten in the slums of San Francisco in 1878. But she did write some adult books as well, including this travelogue. Penelope's Irish Experiences is actually the third in a trilogy. So first, the three ladies go to England, then they go to Scotland, and then they go to Ireland. I only have the Irish Experiences, so this is the only one that I've read. But I definitely enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece of American literature, but it's perfectly charming, as I say. The overall tone of the book is pretty light. It's full of amusing travel anecdotes and then local Irish color. But Kate Wiggin does also touch on the extreme poverty in Ireland at the time. And she also goes into a little bit of religion, politics, and so sort of the problems of the country. There's one part of the book where they're with some of their Irish acquaintances and they play something called the grievance game, where each one is given a few letters of the alphabet and they're supposed to come up with all of the grievances of Ireland they can think of that start with that letter. Sounds like a lot of fun. It's kind of an odd pastime, but there you go. There's a game suggestion for you. You can play with your own country of residence and whip everyone up into a political outrage. Sounds like just a barrel of laughs. But yeah, like I say, so even some serious topics they treat rather lightly. The overall tone is pretty light and humorous. Some things along those lines that I really enjoyed. One was a chapter about dancing, about the kind of country life and the young people doing their traditional dances outdoors. And that just spoke to my heart because it reminded me of my days in England when I went to a Bible school there, which was at a 19th century manor house. And we would do ceilidh dances out in the courtyard. So, the courtyard was cobblestones and, it'd be nighttime, a bunch of young people, it was outdoors and we were all dancing. And just lots of fun. And so I kind of understand that vibrant atmosphere. And it is definitely a sight to see. So I enjoyed that chapter that touched on Irish dancing. I also thought it was cute that she writes a letter back home in the Irish dialect, just kind of for fun, telling about how they're doing, what they're up to, but in an Irish dialect. And I remember doing that on my first visit to England, just like on vacation. And I was in Bath, where Jane Austen used to live. And I wrote a letter back home to a friend who incidentally hates Jane Austen, or hated Jane Austen at the time, so I just wanted to annoy him really, but I wrote the whole letter in the style of Jane Austen. So I also enjoyed towards the end of the book, they've made some Irish friends and they're together with them, and they've all come up with these fanciful Irish names for themselves, and they each have to come up with sort of an Irish fairy tale style story to tell everyone else. And I think that's really fun. Any kind of games or such where you do something creative and tell a story like with your friends and it's funny and it's a good time. We don't do enough of that now. We're all glued to our phones or we're watching Netflix or whatever. And we don't take the time to entertain ourselves by just telling stories or playing music or, that kind of a thing. So I enjoyed that chapter too. It's just kind of times gone by that we don't do enough of now. Now the book is mostly a travelogue. It is kind of a novel. There is a sort of story, but it's more episodic. But basically it is a travelogue. They're just kind of going around Ireland to all of the major places. So it's a really nice insight into Irish life at the time of the turn of the century. Again, this was written in 1901, so around that time you get a peek into old Ireland. For the most part, Penelope, who is the narrator of the book, Penelope's Irish Experiences, she's a pretty good-natured soul, it seems like, as Kate Douglas Wiggin was, I'm sure. But one thing she does do is she doesn't always paint the most flattering picture of the Irish. She talks a lot about how dirty everything is. She's kind of constantly complaining about how they don't clean anything, they don't cook very well, all they get in the morning is bacon and eggs, and just everything is dirty. And hey, I mean, stereotypes do come from somewhere. There's always an element of truth. Probably Kate Douglas Wiggin herself went to all of these places in Ireland, and maybe she was just incredibly shocked at how dirty everything was and put it into her book. So I can't really comment. I wasn't there. I don't know how dirty things were. If they were, it's probably just because of the extreme poverty at the time. They probably had other things that they were worrying about, maybe. And one character that does come off as just kind of downright prejudice and very arrogant, I would say obnoxiously arrogant, I did not like this character very much, was an addition to this installment of the Penelope series. So normally it's just the three ladies are in a company. It's kind of a girls' trip, you know, again, Francesca, Salamina, and Penelope. But this third one, they pick up a fourth lady who they take on as a maid, and her name is Benella Dusenberry, which is quite a name. But yeah, she's also an American. She definitely thinks she's superior, I think, to the Irish. She thinks she's much better at doing everything, and that maybe she could teach them a thing or two. So she has that attitude, and it's very off-putting. I did not really enjoy the character that much, and I didn't really see the need for why she was there. It seems like the three original ladies do fine on their own. I don't know why Kate Wiggin felt the need to add in an extra character. She doesn't really add all that much except to be kind of obnoxious, which I guess maybe was her way of just kind of manufacturing some tension in the story, some conflict. But I didn't think it worked that well. I could have done without her. The three ladies on their own are fine. Now there is a romance in this story, even though it's mostly just traveling, but there is a romance plot line. So basically, each one of them gets hitched in each book. That's the idea. So the first book, Penelope meets someone and she ends up getting married. The second book, Francesca meets someone in Scotland and she's engaged to him now, so she's going to get married to him. And then the third one, we have Salamina, who's the oldest of the three. She's sort of a spinster, middle-aged spinster, but she's described as being very attractive, but just kind of reserved and doesn't really let herself out very much. But while they're there in Ireland, she ends up meeting an old flame of hers named Dr. Gerald. And he was married. He has a couple children now, but his wife died. And so they kind of rekindle their romance, but it's a slow burn throughout the novel, and Penelope and Francesca keep getting increasingly impatient with how things are going. They kind of want to speed things up, and they're like, can you guys just like get married already? Can you guys just get engaged already? So at the very end of the book, it's kind of a cute scene. They're visiting St. Patrick's Cathedral in Dublin. And as they're going, there's a group of them, and they're kind of going around the cathedral. And Penelope finds that there's an organist there who's practicing for a wedding. And so she goes up to him and she's like, I've got a plan, okay? So there's these two middle-aged sweethearts over here that I want to get them married, okay? So I want you to play the wedding march. And I'm going to time it so that they're going up the aisle as you're playing it, and that's going to inspire Dr. Gerald to ask Salamina finally to marry him. And the organist is like, okay, yeah, I'm on board. So she kind of lines it up to where she kind of pushes them down the aisle, and they're going down the aisle, and she gives the cue to the organist, who starts playing the wedding march. And lo and behold, is anybody surprised? Of course, Dr. Gerald is inspired, and he asks Salamina to marry him, and she eagerly says yes. So a very lovely ending to the book. You always have to end it on a note of romance, a literal note of romance in this case. And something that really touched my heart was that they used Thomas More's Believe Me If All These Endearing Young Charms, which is one of my most favorite love songs. I just think it's so incredibly beautiful. It's describing a love that lasts through everything, through age, through sickness, through, just growing old, being not as young and pretty as you used to be. And it's just this really beautiful testament to what true love really is and what it really looks like. So that's one of the songs that the organist is playing when they first are in the cathedral and they hear him playing. He's playing that song and they kind of comment on it. It always brings a tear to my eye when I hear it, and it actually brings a tear to Francesca's eye as well, and she comments on how beautiful it is. And that particular chapter starts with part of that song, which is my favorite part too. And it goes, "No, the heart that has truly loved never forgets, but truly holds on to the close. As the sunflower turns on her god as he sets, the same look, that she turned when he rose. See, I want to cry right now. It's so beautiful. I can't. Now, something I was disappointed about. So they make a point of going all these places in Ireland, and I was looking forward to when they would get to Northern Ireland, because I've been to Northern Ireland, and they got there, but they didn't go anywhere that I actually went. So I was like, oh man, well, okay. So I stayed in Portstewart, Northern Ireland, and they do pass through Portstewart. I think they spend a night there, but she doesn't really say much about it. It's just a very brief comment. And they very briefly pass through Belfast, but she doesn't say very much about that. Which, as it happens, I only briefly passed through Belfast as well, so that's okay. But she didn't go to the Giant's Causeway, which I was like, you gotta go to the Giant's Causeway. Like, what are you doing? So since that part of the book is clearly deficient, I'll end my little book review on some of my own Irish experiences. So I did go to Giant's Causeway, and it is quite majestic. It is really beautiful. It's got these, famous rock formations that kind of jut out into the sea. And the legend goes that there's a giant named Finn McCool, which is a great name. You gotta love that name, Finn McCool. So he's a giant, and he's going to go across the sea to meet his Scottish rival, who's another giant, a Scottish giant. And so he builds this rock causeway across the sea, and the Scottish giant is scared, and he runs back to Scotland after they meet, and he tears up the causeway as he goes. So all that's left is this little bit of it jutting off from Ireland. And me and my little traveling group, we had a lot of fun roaming around there. We were the only ones there that I could see when we went. So we had the whole place kind of to ourselves, and we were climbing over the rocks and stuff. And we took a trail up on the cliffs as well. And there's just this gorgeous plush grass that grows up on the cliffs. And so we laid down on the grass, and it literally felt like a mattress. It's so thick and soft. And up there on the cliff, the wind is just deafening. One of the guys in our group, he joked when we got back down, he joked, "Oh, I can finally hear the voices in my head again." It's that loud. It's just kind of whipping around you, but it's really cool because we had, the sun was shining, so it was warm, and then the wind is just whipping around your face, and we were lying on the grass, and that literally goes down as one of the most just purely blissful moments of my entire life. Okay, and then one more Northern Irish story. So where we stayed was in Portstewart, and we were kind of looking out at the sea in the area around Portstewart, taking in the sights. And while we were up there, this BBC reporter approached us. So it turns out the year prior to when we were there, this statue of the sea god had been stolen and smashed into pieces, and in its place was left a wooden cross that said, "You shall have no other gods before me." So that's kind of an odd, interesting story. And this had happened a year prior, and at the time that we were there, a year later, they had rebuilt the statue. The same artist had rebuilt the statue, and they were reinstalling it. And so this BBC reporter, I guess, was going around and seeing what people's opinions were on the topic. So she was asking us about it, and it was me and my German friend who was in our group, and then my Irish host whose house I was staying in. And so the two of us, me and my friend, we were kind of like, we're not even from here, we're foreigners, so we don't have that much of an opinion on whether the statue is here or not. We don't care. This is your guys' thing. And so my host was also kind of like, we're also Christians, so we'd be more inclined to agree with the people who put the cross there than not. You can debate whether it's okay to steal a statue or not, but we're like, lady, we're not the ones you want to ask, because two of us aren't even from here, so, let me know if you've been to Ireland and if you've got some fun Irish experiences of your own. And then I also have a blog post on this book as well that goes into a little bit more detail with my book review, and you can get to that at wondrouswell.wordpress.com. And with that, anon.